Right now, a war is raging in the Middle East. But its shockwaves, they're being felt thousands of miles away, and they're threatening to push the entire world to the very brink of an economic catastrophe. We're going to break down exactly how this one conflict could trigger a global depression, starting right at the beginning, with the first shots fired. And look, let's be crystal clear about the stakes here. This quote says it all. Experts aren't just muttering about a recession. They are worried about a full-blown, depression-level event if this thing spirals out of control. This is the absolute worst-case scenario that has world leaders and economists everywhere holding their breath. So how did we even get here? To really understand the global fallout, we have to start at the epicenter of the crisis itself, where direct military clashes have suddenly become a terrifying new reality. Okay, so the situation on the ground is just incredibly dangerous. For 3 weeks now, US and Israeli forces have been hitting targets inside Iran. And Iran has hit back, hard, with more than 60 waves of missiles and drones. But here's what's truly alarming. These strikes are coming dangerously close to nuclear facilities on both sides. I mean, the risk of some kind of catastrophic nuclear accident is terrifyingly real. And if you want to know just how seriously this military threat is being taken, get this. Even the USS Gerald R. Ford, that's the most advanced aircraft carrier in the entire US Navy, has reportedly been forced to pull back to a safe distance. The message there is loud and clear. Nobody is underestimating Iran's missile capabilities. This direct military conflict has kicked off a massive domino effect. And the first and most critical domino to fall is the world's single most important energy choke point. Meet the Strait of Hormuz. It's this incredibly narrow strip of water, and it's the only way for ships to get from the Persian Gulf out to the open ocean. And look at how narrow it is. At its tightest point, the shipping lanes are just 2 miles wide. That's it. It's a tiny geographic bottleneck with massive strategic importance. So why does this little strait matter so much? Well, every single day, about 20% of the world's oil flows through here. Same for liquefied natural gas, or LNG, another 20%. And it's not just fuel. A staggering 40% of the entire world's fertilizer supply, which is critical for growing food, depends on this one route. For years, intelligence agencies have been warning that if Iran was ever attacked, it would probably try to shut down the strait. Well, the attack happened, and now shipping through that vital corridor has been severely disrupted. So, what does that mean for the rest of us? Well, this disruption leads us directly to the next major consequence: an immediate, severe shock to the entire global energy market. And it's a shock that's hitting us from two sides at once. What we're facing is a dual supply shock. It's a 1-2 punch. On one hand, oil traffic is just crippled, which takes up to 20% of the world's daily supply right off the market. On the other hand, neighboring Qatar, which is a huge LNG producer, had to shut down its operations. So this isn't just an oil crisis, it's a massive natural gas crisis too. And here is where it really starts to hit home for all of us. Analysts are predicting that after just 3 weeks of this mess, the price of oil could skyrocket from around $85 a barrel to almost $150. That's a surge that everyone, and I mean everyone, will feel at the gas pump. And it's going to drive up the cost of pretty much everything we buy. And you know, this LNG shock is especially painful for Europe. Those countries just went through the incredibly difficult process of getting off Russian gas, only to make themselves dependent on LNG imports, the very supply that is now in jeopardy. But the impact goes way beyond energy prices. Not even close. This crisis is fueling a diplomatic firestorm at the highest levels. It's spreading panic far from the actual battlefield, and it's hammering other critical parts of the global economy. Over at the United Nations, the world's major powers are just completely gridlocked. You've got the US, the UK, and France on one side condemning Iran, and on the other side you have Russia and China condemning what they call US and Israeli armed aggression. It's a global blame game, and the result is total diplomatic paralysis. Nothing gets done. And this war-fueled anxiety, it's spreading to places thousands of miles away. Get this. One morning over Pennsylvania and Ohio, people see a loud boom and a fireball in the sky. Instantly, social media explodes, with people terrified that it's an Iranian missile strike on US soil. It took NASA an entire hour to confirm it was just a meteor. It just goes to show how on edge everyone is. And the economic body blows just keep on coming. The airline industry is suffering because the Gulf is a massive hub for travel. Defense stocks, well, they're soaring. And even the entire business model of a place like Dubai, which built its reputation on being a stable oasis, that's been shattered. Suddenly, there's a huge risk premium attached to doing any business in the region. So you might be thinking, okay, if the conflict were to just end tomorrow, could things go back to normal? Unfortunately, it's just not that simple. The physical and engineering realities of the energy industry create their own stubborn bottlenecks that are incredibly hard to fix. Yeah, you see, restarting the flow of energy isn't like flipping a light switch. When oil producers run out of places to store their oil, they have to shut in the wells, and getting them started again is tough. For older wells, it can sometimes be impossible. And for LNG, it's even trickier. A liquefaction plant is basically a giant refrigerator. Once it warms up, it can take a month, maybe even longer, to cool all the way back down to the minus 160 degrees Celsius needed to make LNG again. This vulnerability is so profound, so dangerous, that for decades, engineers have dreamed up this truly radical, almost sci-fi solution. What if you could just bypass the Strait of Hormuz altogether with a giant canal? On paper, the Musandam Canal sounds brilliant, right? You just cut a new channel through this bit of Oman and voila, a new route to the ocean. The problem is, reality is a total nightmare. This isn't flat desert. You'd have to excavate through entire mountains, costing hundreds of billions of dollars. And even if you could pull it off, all you've done is trade one natural bottleneck for a new, equally vulnerable artificial one. It's a grand solution that really solves nothing. All of this leaves us with a final, really unsettling question. This whole crisis has laid bare just how dependent our entire global economy is on a few incredibly fragile corridors. The dream of a bypass canal shows how desperate we are for an easy fix, but the hard reality is there isn't one. We've seen what happens when the Strait of Hormuz is threatened, so what happens when the next one closes?